in agriculture, out in a rural area, we tend to think that, everybody knows what we're doing.
Yes.
If we say cover crops, we're going to assume people know what they are. We
Yep.
shouldn't be assuming that.
Yeah, I agree, because especially when you're looking at the survey regarding cover crops, the good news is that we find that half the land in Iowa, more than half the land in Iowa, the owner said they're open to growing more cover crops. 20 said yes, and the other 30% said maybe for the next 5 years. But the other side of the reality is we only have 4% of the acres are currently using cover crops. So there's not a whole lot of people necessarily know the challenges or the intricate reality of how to make this work, because a lot of people notice there are top reasons that deter adoption of cover crops, or people find it that it's not necessarily easy to kill, easy to terminate, or the cost is a little high, or they don't necessarily find enough time to plant the next year's crop. And I think with professionals, conservation-minded professionals also need to think about whether there are technical assistance that is possible to help break these specific barriers. And our survey has some of the top reasons listed for not necessarily adopting these practices for both cover crops, no-till, and specifically. So.
Okay, well, I want to go back to one thing, since we did what we call spring regionals, where we went out as conservation districts of Iowa and talked to commissioners in 9 regions of the state. And one of the things that we did this year was on the economics of soil health. And we had numbers from Iowa State of the facts that it is so much cheaper to produce a bushel of corn with no-till and cover crops than it is conventionally. Do you have any comment on that, quick?
I think unfortunately for the soil health, it's a harder question to tackle than just the conservation practice adoption. At the university, we're talking about how to accelerate the soil health movement, but we think that it's currently, unfortunately, both the agronomy science related to soil health, how a particular practice could reliably improve both the water quality measures and also yields. It still needs more research, but also the economic side of the things, how this will translate into more yields, higher land values, or the societal benefits, how this translates into valuation of reduction in harmful algal bloom, hypoxic zone, and things like those needs more research. I think we're still probably at the early stages of the journey, but I think we are in a conversation trying to move this forward. But it's unfortunately currently the science is ongoing. It's still in early stages.
And we realize that, but it is something I think that would help us move conservation.
Yes, I think that's one of the things that is regarding either with conservation practice or soil health. So why people are so interested about this is we need to demonstrate not only this is beneficial for the Gulf of Mexico, but also can generate private benefits through yields or long-term soil health. That's really what people really excite farmers, and I think that's part of the thing that we really need more research and more region-specific research to demonstrate that this actually works in my region as well. So
very good. Yes. That really is a good point, and I know that we're getting close to the end here, but you made the point that over 50% are willing to adopt, which is what we need to get to in the Iowa nutrient reduction strategy. So,
but really only 4% currently adopted. 4% of the acres, right?
So we've got to educate 10 times as many more people on cover crops. So, I really appreciate this information. Do you have any closing thoughts on this that that you would share with us?
Yeah, I think one of the one of the take-home message after doing this survey is for a long time, both at the university and the state federal agency level, that we do a lot of producer meetings, but we don't pay close attention to landowners. But remember that it's only half the land in Iowa, less than half actually, are owner operated. More than half are rented out to others. So getting landowners involved in conservation is critical, especially when you have more and more people who are more senior in their and later stage. They may not necessarily live in Iowa for the entire time. They all assert that the land is owned by someone who do not have farming experience. How to get people involved at all in agriculture, and especially on conservation, getting farmland owners also interested in things. It's really critical in moving forward in a nutrient reduction strategy. And we at ISU, we are doing a couple of things. We have a current proposal to educate senior women landowners who are 65 or older. One part is on conservation. We are also on land conservation. We are also working on farmer surveys in Boone and Raccoon River watershed, looking into whether an alternative funding mechanism rather than the standard cost share could be more palatable for landowner or tenants. So I think there are more ways potentially to there. One of the messages, we need to get landowner involved in conservation as well. And as a researcher, I'm also advocating more flexibility and more room for innovation, both in terms of policy design, but also maybe more research regarding the effectiveness of the education or program efforts to evaluate which program works, which doesn't work, and how we can improve on things related to either IDOS dollars or USDA dollars in incentivizing, because different places the practice is different. So in West Central Iowa, no-till adoption is much higher, while in area with more pasture and livestock, especially cattle raising, cover crops is more appealing because of additional private benefits. So
Sure.
So I think that's probably my two thoughts.